Mahatma Gandhi was the leader who directed India's freedom struggle against the 150-year loot of the subcontinent. The movement against the exploitation of the peasants in Champaran and Bihar was the first blow, which was to shake the foundations of the British rule. Gandhi's flashback of the historic struggle has been recorded in Louis Fisher's book The Life of Mahatma Gandhi, which has been called as one of the best books on the father of the nation. Fisher was an American journalist who was an admirer of the Mahatma. He was fascinated by the historic moments unfolding before him. Gandhi had gone to the December 1916 annual convention of the Indian National Congress Party in Lucknow. There were 2,300 delegates and many visitors. There, Gandhi was waylaid by a poor peasant named Raj Kumar Shukla. Raj Kumar Shukla was from Champaran in the foothills of the Himalayas near Nepal. He and his fellow peasants had a grouse against the British landlords who were making life hell for them. He had come to the Congress session to complain. Someone there diverted him towards Gandhiji. Since Gandhi's knowledge about the issue was nil, he tried to brush Shukla off, but the latter proved to be a sticky customer. Wherever Gandhi went, Shukla followed him like a shadow. Gandhi retreated to his ashram in Sabarmati, only to find Shukla still on his tail. An outfoxed Gandhi agreed to listen to Shukla and take up his matter.
Selflessness and courage. Gandhi had a sincere desire to help those who came to him for help. It did not matter that Raj Kumar Shukla was an impoverished peasant. Gandhi had to venture to a remote town in the foothills of the Himalayas. He had to take on the mighty British. He did not think twice about it. He was courageous and was unswerved by challenges. A hallmark of a true leader.
Gandhi and Shukla met at an appointed time in Calcutta. They made by train for the house of Rajendra Prasad in Patna. Yes, it was the same person who would become the first president of Free India. But the lawyer was out of town. Prasad's servants permitted the two to stay on the grounds of the house, but the well was out of bounds for Gandhi. The servants assumed that he was an untouchable like his companion, and Gandhi might pollute the entire well. Gandhi decided to go to Muzaffarpur en route to Champaran to gather more data. He summoned his chum Professor J.B. Kripalani to welcome him at the railway station. The professor obeyed and came along with his hapless students. Gandhi stayed in the house of a gutsy government teacher, Professor Malkani, who was not bothered about losing his job for harboring an Indian freedom fighter. The arrival of a possible messiah attracted crowds of hopeful peasants. Gandhi caught hold of their lawyers and was informed about their cases and the fees. Gandhi ticked them off for squeezing large fees out of the sharecroppers. He decided to forget going to the courts as it would serve no purpose.
Clarity of vision. Gandhi realized the futility of the courts and law. Laws can never bring change. Things will never change as long as man remains the same. Gandhi changed the strategy to find a solution.
The British ruled India for 150 years solely by a combination of divide and rule policy and bluff. The rivalry among the royal princes and an unwarranted fear of the white man, the bluff, were utilized by the British. Gandhi wanted to call their bluff and demolish their imperialism.
The peasants were gutless and scared stiff. The first thing to do would be to pump some courage into them. The issue: most of the arable land in Champaran was broken up into large estates which were in the control of the British. Indian peasants slogged over the land. They were forced to cultivate indigo on 15% of their land and surrender the entire harvest to the landlord. The landlords came to know of the sudden German invention of synthetic indigo. They knew they could no longer squeeze wealth out of Indigo. They wanted to make one last killing from the poor saps who slaved for them. They offered to let the peasants slip out of their lousy long-term contracts provided they coughed up a hefty sum. Some peasants who had had enough of the pain in the neck, parted with the amount. Braver peasants resisted and hired lawyers. The British countered with thugs and gundas. Meanwhile, the poor saps who had paid up to get out, came to know about the artificial indigo. Realizing that they had been bamboozled, they wanted their money back. But the British just smirked and told them to go to blazes. Gandhi arrived on the scene at this critical juncture. Gandhi, being fair, wanted to set a trend by seeing the British side of the matter. He met the secretary of the British Landlords Association. But the secretary with sealed lips asked him who the hell he was, and why he should ask for information. On Movt, Gandhi retorted that he was no outsider and it was the British that was a foreigner. Thirsty for more, Gandhi accosted the British commissioner of the Turret Division, who trampled all over him, and told him to beat it.
Open-mindedness. Gandhi wanted to know the British side of the Champaran issue before taking action against them. The arrogant and power-drunk British didn't see what was going to hit them, and rebuffed Gandhi. But Gandhi was least perturbed by their high-handedness. He realized that they were asking for trouble and he proceeded to give them what they wanted. His conscience wouldn't allow him to do wrong even against the greedy looters and bloodsuckers, who had been sucking to the nation, for years.
An unabashed Gandhi cooled his heels in Motihari, where the usual gathering of lawyers and peasants bolstered his nerve. He stayed in somebody's house and used it as a headquarters. Hearing that some peasant had been maltreated, Gandhi headed in that direction. Since he could get hold of no decent transport, Gandhi was forced to mount, you guessed it, an elephant. The monumental mission was cut short when the police superintendent's stooge overtook on a faster carriage and ordered Gandhi to dismount and return to Motihari. At home, the stooge handed over a notice to Gandhi to leave Champaran immediately. Gandhi signed a receipt but conveyed his refusal to obey the order. As a result, Gandhi was summoned to court the next day. Gandhi slept a sleepless night. He sent an SOS to Rajendra Prasad to come with influential friends. He said his goodbyes to his ashram in Sabarmati. He sent a full report to the viceroy. The next day found Motihari flooded with black-skinned peasants.
Cool-headedness. Gandhi was a cool-headed customer. He never turned a hair to all the British's attempts to hustle him out of Champaran. His each step was carefully thought out and guaranteed to fetch success.